165 pounds, the NCAA Wrestling Championships. The Bull going up against Vincenzo Joseph. But will either of them actually make the finals in this stacked up weight? Let's find out. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah and welcome to Fanco Wrestling. And through this years, we've been going weight by weight, bracket by bracket, looking at the potential at who would win the NCAA Wrestling Championships had they happen. Now, with every single video, we start out in the quarterfinals and the blood round because going through those weights, every single bracket would just be too massive of a haul. Now, I do have the full brackets here, but at this point, we're at the quarterfinals and the blood round. And this is an exciting weight, a loaded up weight between Alex Marinelli and Vincenzo Joseph, who've already faced each other 2 times this year and multiple times in the past. Shane Giffith coming in undefeated. What can happen there? Jake Wenzel with some impressive wins at the ACC Championships. And what's going to happen with some of these other guys like Isaiah White and Evan Wick? Well, let's jump into this and find out. Starting at the top with Alex Marinelli going up against Evan Wick. Now, these two have wrestled many times in the past. Marinelli has a 4-1 record over Evan Wick. The last time we lost him was actually in 2018, so it's been quite a while. Now, all of those have been decisions. All of them have been relatively close matches, but at this point, I have to go with Alex Marinelli. He's beat him the last few times and pretty soundly, even though they're close decisions. He beat him by a solid match. And now, let's move Wick down. He will be facing off against Josh Shields, and that is sure to be a match right there. Looking at the next match, Isaiah White going up against Quentin Perez. Now, getting to this match at this point, you may be asking yourself, like, why Quentin Perez is in here as the number 13 seed, because typically you're going to see number 1 through 8 in the quarterfinals. And yes, there are upsets in every single weight class, every single year, and I sprinkled in a few that I thought that could have happened, and one of those was Quentin Perez going up against Travis Whitlake in the round before. The reason I said that is because Quentin Perez has bigger margins of victory than Whitlake did, as well as the fact that Whitlake's just a redshirt freshman, whereas Quentin Perez is coming into his redshirt senior year. And so he's had a couple more years of experience. He's been at the tournament before, and I think their styles, Perez would be able to get that. Now, as far as White and Perez, how that happens, interestingly enough, Quentin Perez also has bigger margins of victory than Isaiah White. Isaiah White doesn't necessarily have a bunch of big bonus point victories, whereas Quentin Perez does. Now, the thing can be said that Isaiah White has had a tougher schedule because it's a Big Ten versus a SoCon schedule. That's just kind of how things work. But the wins I want to look at is Josh Shields, which Quentin Perez, although he went to sudden victory with him, he does have a loss to him, whereas Isaiah White of Nebraska, coming in at the number 5 seed, does have a win over Shields, and because of that, I have to move White on into the semifinals, and Perez is going to come down here to go off against Monday, and that's going to be an exciting one, I promise you. Now, with Shane Giffith and Jake Wenzel, Shane Giffith has been so exciting to watch and follow this year. He's an undefeated freshman, and it's tough to say how he'd do against some of these guys. But as far as Shane Giffith going up against Wenzel, now, looking at common opponents, Jake Wenzel has lost so far this season to Kennedy Monday, Travis Whitlake, and Fogarty. And the reason that I have to move Griffith on into the semifinals is because he has wins over all of them. And even though Wenzel has had a solid postseason, Griffith's just been solid all around, and he as well has been peaking. So the number 3 seed moving on into the semifinals. Wenzel moving down here now, going up against Zach Hartman, which is a Whippeal matchup, a Pennsylvania matchup. Now, looking at Bullard versus Vincenzo Joseph, this weight has been Alex Marinelli's and Vincenzo Joseph's for the full year, and I don't think that that's changing at this point going up into the semifinals, as well as the fact that Bullard already has a couple of losses to Vincenzo Joseph in the past, and so I have to say Vincenzo is moving on into the semifinals. This is an exciting weight at this point. Now, Bullard's going to move down here, going up against Whitlake. And listen, this consolation bracket now going into the blood round It is brutal. Anything can happen here. We see this every single year. You see guys do well up until this point, come down into the Conci bracket when guys have 2-3 matches before that, and they are hungry. They're hungry for blood, and they're just out to win. So looking at the blood round, what's going to happen here? First of all, Kennedy Monday going up against Quentin Perez. As I already mentioned, Perez is the number 13 seed. Monday is the number 18 seed. And Monday has had some impressive victories this season, one of them being over David McFadden. And if you notice, McFadden's name isn't in this list because McFadden actually kind of ended up right here, the match before that when I have Kennedy Monday defeating McFadden yet again. That tech fall from earlier on in the season is just a little bit difficult to overlook, and McFadden just hasn't been performing, whereas Kennedy Monday has. Now, looking at Monday, he's a junior. Perez is a senior. Neither of them have All-American up to this point. This year, they wrestled each other twice. Back at the beginning of the season at the Southeast Open, Perez pinned Kennedy Monday. But at Midland, Monday actually returned that victory and got his own victory and was able to get revenge there. Not a pin, but a win. Now, these two have a rivalry going all the way back to high school, which makes this match even more exciting. And because of that, because of the back and forth of this, I have to say that Perez, as a senior, is going to want it a bit more, and he's going to move on and earn his first All-American. Josh Shields versus Evan Wick. These two, they both have an exciting skill set to watch. Wick is a little bit more lanky, a little bit more able to ride those legs. Shields just a little bit more defensive. I think Wick, looking at their records in previous years, they're 1-1 against each other. Very close victories, but Evan Wick does have that little bit better of a get-it-done attitude. All-American in the past, and that's why Wick's moving on, going up against Quentin Perez, which is another rematch from Midlands. Looking at Travis Whitlake versus Bullard down here, Bullard of NC State. That match, listen, they wrestled before. Whitlake won 9-3. I don't think anything changes here. I think Whitlake's moving on into All-American as a freshman. Looking at Zach Hartman versus Jake Wenzel. Hartman, up until this point, has had an incredible season, an incredible last couple of seasons. He's always been kind of right there with those top guys. Yes, he's had a couple other random losses throughout the year, throughout the last couple of years, but it's tough to overlook. He had a tough match with Jason Nolf in the past seasons. He had a tough match with Alex Marinelli. Doesn't always get those wins, but I think it shows that he's right there. Going up against Jake Wenzel of Pitt. Now, the one thing I want to mention this year, one of the most exciting victories that Zach Hartman had was over Kennedy Monday, which was the week after that Monday teched McFadden. Then Zach Hartman went ahead and pinned Monday. So this weight was just all pandemonium. It was just all wild. Wenzel this season, they like I said, they were in the same region in high school, the Whippeal of Pennsylvania, the Southwest Pennsylvania region, but they actually never wrestled in high school. They were at different weights. I believe Wenzel was just a little bit heavier than Zach Hartman. As far as these two go, as far as what would happen here, I have to give Hartman the victory. I think he has a little bit more ability to score here, a little bit more proven track record, and I think he's just itching to get that All-American. I think it could have happened this year. Let's look at the next two rounds, or the next round pretty quick. Quentin Perez going up against Evan Wick. These two went into sudden victory the last time they wrestled. Perez had a solid, I believe it was tilt he had on him, able to score some quick back points. And went into OT. Wick was able to get the job done, came back, got the job done. And I think a similar thing may happen here. And Wick just, like I said, got the job done against Shields, gets it done against Perez. Perez now going to move down here for 7th and 8th. Wick's moving on. Moving at Whitlake and Hartman. I really wanted to think that Zach Hartman, moving, I said he had solid ones. Moving on into this, could have got the job done. But I think Whitlake had just better victories this season. And because of that, I have to move Whitlake on to the Conci semis. And Hartman's going to come down here for the 7th and 8th place match. Let's look at the semifinals. Looking at Alex Marinelli versus Isaiah White, Shane Giffith versus Vincenzo Joseph. Let's start at the top here first. Alex Marinelli going up against Isaiah White. Now, Marinelli in the past, let's look at his All-American record. Let's look at his Nationals record, because I think that's important to note. In a lot of these guys at this tournament, you get on the big stage and anything can happen. Now, Marinelli in the past has traditionally has routinely underperformed his seed, and which has been unfortunate for him. If you are an Alex Marinelli fan, he plays 6th and 7th. He was an All-American though, but I think that's something to look at here. And had he been on the other side of the bracket against Griffith, I think things could have shaken out a little bit. I think it was better that he actually won that Big Ten title, got the number 1 seed. But as far as going up against Isaiah White, he's beat him 4-3 in the duel. It could be a close match again, but I think that Alex Marinelli at this point in his career gets the job done, moves on to the finals, going up against one of these two. So now Isaiah White's going to come down here, and Vincenzo Joseph versus Shane Giffith. These two have wrestled in the past. They wrestled at the Southern Scuffle and last year, not this year, but last year, when Vincenzo won 6-4. So a tight match. I just recently rewatched that match to see what exactly happened there. And Vincenzo Joseph was able to score a couple of takedowns. But Shane Giffith was also able to score too. He was able to get those legs in, which he does so well. A lanky guy and a great, phenomenal guy on top. But Vincenzo, looking also at some of their schedules, looking at some of the guys they've wrestled this year, one of the guys that they do have in common, not a lot, but one of the guys is Josh Shields. Now, Griffith went into sudden victory with Shields 5-3, whereas Vincenzo Joseph won a 7-4 victory over Josh Shields, and it was a commanding victory. He won without a doubt in anybody's mind. Like, he was the guy that won that match. He was in control of that match. And I think it's just tough to say how well Shane Giffith would do without knowing, because he didn't have the toughest schedule. He didn't have that Big Ten schedule like Vincenzo Joseph did, although he did have some solid victories. I wish I could give it to Shane Giffith here. Not that I wish I could give it. I wish I could see what would happen here. But because Vincenzo's made the finals also every single year of his career, he's proven. Vincenzo Joseph makes it to the NCAA finals yet again. Shane Giffith down here going for the next placing. Now let's jump down here to the placing round. Shane Giffith versus Evan Wick. What would happen here? Looking at their common opponents, it's very similar. Griffith has a little bit better of a bonus percentage, and like I said, these are two guys who I think of as relatively similar style of wrestling, with how well they ride on top, how solid they are on top. I think Griffith has some potential, and I think that potential, to see where he does in the future, especially coming up against another freshman who did well last year in Mekhi Lewis. How could that do? I think Griffith beats Evan Wick in a close match, and Wick's going to go ahead and move down here now to 5th and 6th. Travis Whitlake versus Isaiah White. What would happen there? Similar common opponents. Looking at Isaiah White, who's placed in the past and is a very powerful wrestler. I think going up against Travis Whitlake, who is a young guy, I think Isaiah White just has a little bit more skill there, and I think that Isaiah White's going to move on into the 3rd and 4th. And Isaiah White's somebody also who just really impressed me this postseason and at the Big Ten tournament, and that's really the only thing that we have to compare here. Now let's quickly run through these placements before we get to Marinelli versus Vincenzo Joseph. Who do you think is going to win? Looking at 7th and 8th place, first of all, Perez versus Hartman. These two wrestled earlier in the year. Whenever Hartman won by fall over Perez, it was a match. I don't think that Perez would get pinned again. It was in a cradle. But I believe that Hartman would still win over Perez. He was winning before that fall, and he's going to take 7th place, which is an impressive season for Hartman. Looking at Wick and Whitlake now. Wick has been here before. He's been in a placing position, and I know I keep saying that. It's just tough to know what would have happened if these two would have wrestled, because Whitlake is a younger guy. I believe that because Wick has been here, he's able to get the job done. Looking at this Saturday early morning wrestling, Whitlake, of course, obviously knows he's placed. Wick just wants to get as high as a place as he can. They both do, obviously, but I think Wick ends up at the end of the day taking that victory home. And as far as Griffith versus Isaiah White. What would happen here? Like I said, looking at a couple of these, White has a loss on the season to Wick, who hypothetically Griffith just beat. Not that that means a crazy amount, but I think it has to count for something. And because of that, because of Griffith's potential, I'm going to give it to Griffith, going for the third place match in Marinelli versus Vincenzo Joseph. This is what you're all here. This is what you have been waiting for. What would happen here? Now, the thing is, they've wrestled against each other so many times in the past. Marinelli is 3-1 against Vincenzo Joseph. He's beat him 3 times. Vincenzo has only beat him this year in the dual meet, Iowa versus Penn State. What a match that was, for sure. I mean, the Big Ten Championship was an exciting match, too, whenever Marinelli won. Now, as far as what would happen here, listen, you're going to see some crazy throw. I mean, that's without, that is going to happen. You're going to see somebody toss somebody, and somebody's getting tossed to their back. Whether it's Marinelli, whether it's Joseph, I mean, you make the call as whoever's getting thrown. As far as how I see it, I think that Vincenzo's been here before. He's been in the national finals. Like I said, Marinelli has kind of underperformed. He's never been in the national championships. Although he's always had the better of Vincenzo. I have learned not to doubt Vincenzo in the NCAA finals, in postseason competition. You saw him in the past pin Imar and beat him again the year after that, showing that it wasn't just a fluke. And I think that Vincenzo, because of that, because he's proven here, yes, he does have a loss to Mekhi Lewis last year in NCAAs, but I think Vincenzo is the guy to win the national championship here at 165 pounds. Now, please let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you are interested in checking out the next weight at 174 pounds, looking at Mark Hall versus Michael Kemmer, that's going to be another Iowa versus Penn State matchup potential in the finals. You can check out that video right here.